That is the carryover from the mentality of a military regime, which is now transported into the civil governance. Second point is that you don't target a media house in such a way that the police did with respect to leadership in the newspaper, except you have an intention to intimidate the media. Free speech is the foundation of democracy. And there is law regulating free speech. If the media expresses its opinion beyond the law, what the police can do or what government can do is to follow due process. And with respect, that has not been done in this case. Now, when the journalists were invited for questioning, they were questioned over several hours and detained overnight. That is a problem. Starting your investigation with detention. And the law says that you cannot be detained beyond 24 hours if there is a court.
Is it 24 or 48?
If there is a court within 40 kilometers radius, you cannot be detained beyond 24 hours. Okay. But if there is no court within 48 kilometer radius, then you cannot be detained beyond 48 hours.
Okay.
Now, that has been breached first in this instance. That is section 35. Now, the second point is that you came to leadership newspaper, arrested 4 journalists in respect of one incident. What level of investigation have you done before you move into arrest? Now, let us not forget that this has a precedent. That gradual intrusion into press freedom starts with any government gradually. Now, we saw cases in Kano State. There have been a lot of invasion of media houses. Before, this is not the first time journalists have been interfered with respect to what they published. And the country is gradually moving to a situation where media is going to be monitored. And censorship of media is the beginning of dictatorship. So we think that it is not right to say that to investigate, to arrest these journalists is justified under the Police Act. It is not. The third point I need to make is that police told them, asked them the question. That is what we saw. That's the information we put forward, that they should disclose their source of information. You cannot ask the courts have said so that a journalist is not obliged to disclose the source of information. In fact, that is the protection the journalist has, the confidentiality principle. And in all democracies, that has been respected. Now, if the police investigate the issue and find that there is a case of forgery, for instance, or there's a case of deception or fraudulent conduct, then the police can file a charge. And if he files a charge in court, then the persons the law will take its course.
Charge against whom?
Well, against those who are
journalists who has published what he received ostensibly from government house, or investigation. It's only investigation that can reveal actually where the document came from.
The point I'm making is, the case of forgery will be against the person who did the forgery. It is not against the person who disseminated information in the forgery, because there's a right to fair comment. Now, if there is complicity of the journalist in the act of forgery, then that's a different thing.
I think I might have to come in and help myself. First and foremost, we have raised 2 issues. I didn't want it to come from me, but I'm happy that you are raising it. This question that, look, a journalist cannot be forced to disclose sort of information. I think our duty here is to enlighten the public rightly what the law is, irrespective of whose source is God. But we must stand on the side of what is the law as decided by the court now, because the law is no law until the court decides. I have had the privilege of doing some constitutional analysis starting from 1981, when this type of event started rearing its ugly head in this country. And some of those journalists are still alive today. I will mention the 3 prominent cases to debunk your claim. The first is the case of Innocent Aduku versus Punch. I will mention their names so that people don't think we are talking abstract. Punch is still alive. They wrote a story in 1981 saying that some members of the House of Rep were collecting salary for non-existing workers. In other words, they were collecting salary for ghost workers. Of course, the government of Shagari said that was a malicious publication. That story was not true. So the House of Rep now invited the editor of Punch that time, to come and substantiate that story. Of course, they went to court. That we're not going to disclose. They went to court, and Justice Balogun had the case in 1981, told them, that, look, I agree with you, you have your press right. But you can only exercise that your press right within the framework of the Constitution. The police and or the National Assembly, after the court has gone through the constitutional mirrors in the US and Britain, came to the conclusion that the state can invite a journalist when matter that borders on national security or public interest or in the protection of other people's rights. Journalists can be asked to come and disclose.
By the court?
Yes.
Or by the House of Rep?
By the House of Rep, or by the police. Because the House of Rep also have investigative right under the Constitution, Section 82 and 83. But the court now went further to say, well, the police, neither the police nor the National Assembly has given exceptional reason why that
question should be answered.
Why that question should be answered. So that was why they escaped. And the same thing, the same principle was followed in another case of Olushola Oyegbemi and the sketch versus the Attorney General of the Federation. In the same 1981, jail 1 year. Fortunately, the game also ended up before Justice Balogun at the Keja, of course. Of course, everybody will now know that. The judge didn't find difficulties. Well, I have decided before. And on the further of this case, the government has not convinced me that there are exceptional reasons, that is, the national security is involved, and therefore, I'm not going to oblige the journalists to disclose. The court did not say the journalists cannot disclose. But the greatest impact for our constitutional development was the case of the Senate versus to the moment which started from the High Court. The High Court decided by Candide Johnson then said, look, Nigerian journalists cannot be compelled to disclose. But the Senate took up appeal on that. Because what Tony Momo wrote then, Tony Momo is still alive. Our big uncle and the father, one of the great fathers of journalism today. We all celebrated it, that the court has upheld the right of the Nigerian press. Because what Tony Momo published in his grapevine was the fact that some senators were no longer legislating, but that were chasing contract in the House. So, of course, they now invited, Mr. Journalist, come and tell us which of us as senators is now chasing contract. What? He went to court. Justice ruled against the Senate that you cannot force the journalists to disclose. The Senate took up an appeal to the Court of Appeal. That's what the only case that got to the appeal in Nigeria, which is on record today. The Court of Appeal now review previous cases and consider the position in US and in Britain and concluded that Nigerian journalists don't have that absolute right not to disclose. That the National Assembly and or the police, when a crime has been committed, can ask anybody to come and give the source of information. So that position is this today. So once a law has been violated, you have first of all to establish that a crime has been committed. If a crime has been committed, who has the right to invite? It's not me. Who are those entrusted? It is the police, and that is Section 4. So we must be very careful here, not to mislead.
So if you were the lawyer, as a legal practitioner, if you were the lawyer,
I will appeal the journalists we have been invited. Let us go there, because we have the hindsight of what court have decided.
Yes.
I will not, as a lawyer, advise my client not to obey police call.
Okay, would you allow the police to detain them overnight?
It cannot.
It cannot.
Of course. I will ask for their bail immediately.
Yes.
We are ready to be coming back here to assist the police in the course of their investigation. But please, you cannot detain my clients, like he said, for 17 days. Or even 2 days or 3 days. Yes.
Okay. All right. So now let's come back to practitioner in the industry, Dr. Obuega Aribishogo. Now, when you look at the whole issue, you have heard the side of government as presented by the different spokesperson of President and the federal government saying that the paper or the document was forged.